Hey guys. Hi. So, in this lesson, I don't even know if that I would refer to it as a lesson, but in this video, I'm going to walk you guys through making your second little review book. How exciting is that? So, if you remember, we did this together in class, and so you guys are responsible for it. So, maybe you remember how to use it. I'm sorry. Maybe you remember how to make it, maybe you don't. Either way, it's fine. So, I've got my piece of paper, and I've got my scissors. And I don't have any colors in front of me, but it might be a good, like, if some of you guys decorated them amazingly. So here's my paper. I'm gonna fold it in half. I'm not gonna do this for every little book we make, don't worry. I don't know, maybe I will. It's kind of fun. Okay, so I folded it in half. Right, if you need to pause the video as we go, pause it. I'm gonna fold it in half again. Hamburger, 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 hamburger. It's 3 times. It's like hamburger cubed. And I'm gonna fold it. Now I've got this, fold it one more time. And remember, this is when it looks like a little book, but it's not really a little book yet. And here we are, right? So this is where I'm gonna open it back up. So I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna open it, and I'm gonna open it. And remember, I want to cut from here to here. So here to here. So I'm gonna choose to, here's my paper. I'm gonna fold it up like that original first fold, and I'm gonna cut so that I end up with a hole right in the middle. So when I open it up, I've got this hole that I can look through, okay? And this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna pull it apart. You gotta be careful with like these parts up here because you want it to be pulled apart. And you get like this, and then you've got a little pinwheel. So now I've got my little review book. Okay, if you need to go back and rewatch that again, right, you can watch it as many times as you need to. But I've got my little review book. I'll title it, and I will call it, and maybe I want to call it, I didn't write that on here, but maybe I want to say Unit 2, so that I know, or AAF Unit 2, so that I know, and because this should end up maybe in my bag or my notebook with all of my other little books, because these are, as we spoke about, great resources. To keep a bunch of things. And then I really encourage you as you go through here, like, don't use this to write down things you know, right? Like, you know them. You already knew them. Write down the things that are new so that when you're talking through it, when you're going back to reference, it's the things that you didn't know as well. Like, that's where this becomes a resource. Like, it's not something that I already knew all of the information in here. Okay? So linear and absolute values by whatever your name might be. You can decorate it as you see fit. When we open it up, and again, I'm just going to give you like the template here. I'm not going to tell you what to write because you've got to make it yours. When we open it up, I'm just going to kind of go in order here. So we started with linear functions and linear equations. So we had these 3 forms. So maybe a great thing to do here would be to start with an example. Maybe you're going to have a coordinate point, right? Maybe in here you want to include something about parallel and perpendicular. Right? I didn't write that, but that doesn't mean you can't put that in here, right? So knowing the things, not just like what is standard form, but maybe give yourself an example. I think that's a great thing to do with these so that you have a point of reference. And then we talked about transformations, and that was a very interesting concept, right? Because we were talking about how you're transforming from y minus 0 equals 1 times x minus 0. And we were talking about like that center point 0, 0, and where does it end up? So things about, I mean, I would 100% do like a exam. I mean, I would create mine with examples. If that's not what works for you, that's fine. You might want to think about it, right? It might be meaningful to have an example for yourself. So I would maybe write down something that has everything, like thinking about using those words like reflection, thinking about using those words like vertical stretch, right? So that you're getting yourself in the habit of that. What are your characteristics? We had a list of characteristics, right? So domain, we had range, we had increasing / decreasing, and those were intervals. So like, what are the x values? Continuity is what we introduced here. Extrema, meaning like maximum and minimum. Local and absolute, which a linear function didn't have, but it's still good to talk about, right? So linear equations and functions, and then linear characteristics. All right, I would certainly maybe graph and label so that you're seeing what the graph looks like, because I think it is good to practice graphing. You can link these together if you wanted as well. So then we did the same thing, and we did it with absolute value. I guess not the same thing, but generally, right? And so I would think about things for absolute value like graphing form. Give yourself an example here, right? Maybe you're going to say something like y equals negative 2x minus 7 plus, plus 4. I don't know. Make up your own. Use this if you would like. Graph it. Right? Like maybe over here, I'm going to graph and label. Here, I will describe it in words and be precise with the transformations. Here, I'll talk about the characteristics like the domain and the range, right? Notice that I'm asking these before you graph and label. Oh, what was important here? X-intercepts and Y-intercepts algebraically or analytically, right? So what is your math telling you? Instead of, remember, we spoke about when you're finding the x-intercepts, thinking about what it looks like, but thinking about like if you get something that is the absolute value of x minus 4 equals a negative number, that doesn't make sense, right? Like not just going through the procedure, but thinking about like what is my math actually telling me, right? As well as graphing and labeling and looking at like the vertex and which way does it open, using words like reflection here as well. From here, what do we do next? Oh, this isn't what we did next, but we needed some more room for it. We talked about 2x2 systems. I would maybe give myself an example of one that I'm solving by substitution, and we solve by linear combinations. The big one that came up were like the new words, right? The vocab that went with this. What were those 3 words, and what did they mean, and what did they indicate? Like if I'm writing mine as a coordinate point, that means it's independent consistent. What do you do if it's dependent consistent? What does that mean? Oh, it's a line. What is it called if there is no intersection, if they're parallel lines? Oh, that's inconsistent, right? So going through that, like how do you know, right? Like how do you recognize that? How do you know that from math? Right, like there is a way to solve linear systems, obviously using graphing. We're not like that is not what we were working on. We were working on like algebra, but knowing that this would make it, this is what it would look like if I were to graph it is really great. And then we also talked about 3x3 systems, right? And linear it's a kind of a combination of linear combination, and substitution together. And here we would just say that it was independent, consistent, or no unique solution. If you are someone that consistently forgot to write it as a point, give yourself an example of that. If you're looking for examples, use the textbook. The textbook has problems. Find problems from it. Pick an odd one so you know if you're doing it right or wrong, right? Like, it's a great thing to do. When you're dealing with a 3x3 system, it might be a really good idea here, especially if this was an area you needed more work on. Give yourself one that has a solution, and one that doesn't have a solution, so that you know what they both look like mathematically. And practice all of this stuff without a calculator, right? Like that basic math, we don't need a calculator for. You got this. And then finally, what I saved the back for was piecewise functions. Right, so here, piecewise functions, we only dealt with piecewise linear. That's the only thing you're responsible for right now. We didn't get into what would happen if it was quadratic. I think that's important to know, but we will get there, and that's not something that we're going to test. So maybe giving yourself an example here, maybe talking about like the function notation with this, right? So I would probably go with an example, and graphing and labeling, and practice precisely. right? Like how you practice is how you're going to remember. You're going to be like, this is what I did on my practice, so this is what I need to do on the assessment. If you wanted to leave some room here, we are going to cover one more objective related to this unit that is not going to be on the test. It'll come after, but you might want to add it on to here. And if you want to put it on here, we're going to talk about linear modeling. If you want to leave yourself room, if not, it's fine. We are not testing on it. This is something that will come later, but if you wanted it to be part of your Unit 2 little book, it typically would be. It just didn't really fit for us this time the way we're working. So we're going to do that after the test. But there. Now you kind of know what's coming. So with that being said, like this is what should be in your little book. You guys have access to this PowerPoint. We can't wait to see your videos of you talking through it. And again, like that is something that is a great thing to do. Even if you're making the book as you're studying, but a great thing to do is to record that video the night before you take the test. Or the night before you come to class to take the test, because sometimes talking through problems and talking through what you did helps you commit it to memory. So it's a great resource. Hopefully you're seeing the benefit of it. And then when you're done with the little book, put it in your bag or your book or whatever you're keeping it in so that you have them all in one place. So have fun with it. We can't wait to see them. And thanks everyone for watching.